The bottle of pills clattered to the floor, each one a tiny grenade exploding in Gavin's heart. He stood frozen in the dim light of their Brooklyn apartment, his trembling hands clutching the evidence of betrayal, unmarked, translucent capsules hidden in the back of Ethan's dresser. How could you? He thought, his green eyes stinging with tears as the man he loved. His alpha, his everything, suddenly felt like a stranger. Gavin, 25, had always been the quieter one, the dreamer who found solace in sketching cityscapes and losing himself in Ethan's fierce, protective embrace. Ethan, 27, was the opposite, a commanding presence with a smile that could light up Times Square and a body carved from years of discipline as a personal trainer. They'd met 2 years ago at a queer art gallery opening in Chelsea. Their connection instant, magnetic, like two stars colliding in a universe meant only for them. Gavin had believed Ethan was his forever, his alpha in every sense, strong, devoted, and fiercely loyal. But now, staring at those pills, Gavin's world tilted. He'd found them by accident, searching for a spare phone charger while Ethan was at the gym. The label-less bottle had been tucked inside a velvet pouch, buried under socks and old receipts. At first, Gavin thought they were supplements. Ethan was obsessive about his health. But a quick search on his phone revealed the truth. They were suppressants, drugs used by alphas to mask their true scent and bonding instincts. Why would Ethan hide this? Why would he suppress the very essence of who he was? Unless he was hiding something far worse. Gavin's knees buckled, and he sank onto the bed, his sketchbook falling open to a half-finished drawing of Ethan's face. The man he'd trusted with his heart, his body, his future. Was he even real? The room spun as Gavin's hand drifted to his stomach, a flutter of realization hitting him. He'd been nauseous for weeks, chalking it up to stress from his freelance art gigs. But now, the pieces clicked into place. He was pregnant. And Ethan, his alpha, was keeping secrets that could destroy them both. The front door clicked open. "Babe, I'm back." Ethan's voice, warm and rich, echoed through the apartment. Panic surged through Gavin like wildfire. He stuffed the pills back into the pouch, his heart hammering. He couldn't confront Ethan, not yet. Not until he knew what those pills meant. Not until he was sure their love wasn't a lie. That night, as Ethan pulled him close, whispering sweet promises against his skin, Gavin played along, his smile a fragile mask. But inside, he was unraveling. By dawn, he'd made his decision. He packed a small bag, left a vague note about needing space, and slipped out into the cold New York morning, the weight of their unborn child anchoring his resolve. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to run. The Greyhound bus rattled along I-95, carrying Gavin away from the city that held his heart and his heartbreak. He stared out the window, the blurred lights of passing towns reflecting the chaos in his mind. His phone buzzed relentlessly, Ethan's name flashing on the screen, but Gavin couldn't answer. Each unanswered call felt like a knife twisting deeper. But he needed answers first. Answers about the pills. Answers about the man he thought he knew. Gavin had chosen a small coastal town in Maine, a place he'd once sketched from a postcard, its lighthouse standing defiant against crashing waves. It felt far enough from Ethan's reach, a sanctuary where he could breathe, think, and protect the life growing inside him. He rented a tiny room above a bookstore. The owner, a kind-eyed woman named Clara, sensing his quiet desperation and asking no questions. Days turned into weeks, and Gavin settled into a fragile routine. He worked odd jobs at the bookstore, sketching in his free time, his art now tinged with the ache of loss. But Ethan's presence lingered like a shadow. Late at night, Gavin would wake, heart pounding, certain he'd heard Ethan's voice calling his name. He'd check his phone, finding voicemails filled with desperation. "Gavin, please, just tell me you're safe. I can explain everything." But Gavin couldn't trust those words, not yet. One evening, as he closed the bookstore, a stranger lingered outside, his silhouette tall and imposing under the street lamp. Gavin's breath caught. The man's posture, the way he moved, it was too familiar. He ducked into the alley, heart racing, and called Clara. "I think someone's following me," he whispered, his voice trembling. Clara's calm voice steadied him, but the fear didn't fade. Was Ethan hunting him? And if he was, what did he want? To reclaim Gavin or to silence him? Gavin's hand rested on his stomach, the slight swell a reminder of why he'd run. He wasn't just protecting himself anymore. He was protecting their child, a child Ethan didn't even know existed. The weight of that secret pressed down on him, but so did the fear of what Ethan might do if he found them. Ethan wasn't a man who gave up easily. In New York, he paced their empty apartment, the silence deafening without Gavin's laughter, his sketches, his warmth. The note Gavin left, "I need space," was a dagger to his heart, but the truth behind it was worse. Ethan knew exactly why Gavin had run. The pills. He meant to tell Gavin, to explain everything, but he'd waited too long, and now his Omega was gone, carrying a piece of him Ethan didn't even know about. The suppressants weren't what Gavin thought. They weren't about betrayal or hiding his alpha nature. They were about survival. Ethan had a past, a dangerous one. Before Gavin, he'd been tangled with a powerful alpha pack in Chicago, a group that demanded loyalty and punished betrayal with blood. The pills dulled his scent, kept him off their radar, kept him safe to build a life with Gavin. But he'd never told Gavin the truth, too afraid of dragging him into that darkness. Now, Ethan was on the hunt. He tracked Gavin's credit card to a bus ticket, then to a small Maine town. Every lead was a lifeline, pulling him closer to the man he loved. But he wasn't the only one searching. The pack had found him again. Their leader, Marcus, a ruthless alpha with a vendetta. They wanted Ethan back or dead. And if they found Gavin first, Ethan knew they'd use him as leverage. Ethan arrived in Maine under a stormy sky, his heart a war zone of hope and fear. He checked into a motel, his senses sharp, catching faint traces of Gavin's scent in the air. He was close. Too close. But so were the wolves from his past. Gavin's life in Maine had become a delicate balance of hiding and healing. He'd grown close to Clara, who shared stories of her own lost loves, helping Gavin find strength in his solitude. But the stranger outside the bookstore hadn't been a fluke. Gavin felt eyes on him everywhere, on the pier, in the diner, even in the quiet of his room. His sketches grew darker, filled with wolves and shadowed figures, his subconscious screaming what his heart refused to admit. Ethan was coming for him. One night, as fog rolled in from the Atlantic, Gavin stepped out of the bookstore and froze. Ethan stood across the street, his dark curls damp from the mist, his eyes burning with a mix of love and desperation. "Gavin," he called, his voice raw. "Please, just hear me out." Gavin's instincts screamed to run, but his heart anchored him to the spot. He clutched his jacket, the swell of his pregnancy hidden beneath. "Why should I trust you?" he spat, his voice trembling with hurt. "You lied to me, Ethan. Those pills, what are you hiding?" Ethan stepped closer, hands raised, his alpha presence both comforting and terrifying. "I was protecting you," he said, his voice breaking. "The pills are not what you think. I'm not cheating, Gavin. I'm running from my past, a past that could hurt you." Before Gavin could respond, a low growl cut through the fog. 3 figures emerged, their eyes glinting with predatory intent. Marcus, the pack leader, stepped forward, his smile cold. Well, Ethan, you've led us right to your little Omega." Gavin's blood ran cold. He didn't know who these men were, but their presence screamed danger. Ethan moved in front of him, his body a shield. "Stay away from him," Ethan growled, his alpha instincts flaring. The confrontation erupted into chaos, Ethan fighting off the pack, Gavin scrambling for safety, his heart pounding for the child he carried. In the blur of fists and snarls, Gavin saw the truth. Ethan wasn't just fighting for him. He was fighting for their future. They escaped to Clara's bookstore, barricading the door as the pack's howls faded into the night. Ethan's face was bruised, his shirt torn, but his eyes never left Gavin. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, kneeling before him. "I should have told you everything." Over the next hour, Ethan poured out his story. The pack in Chicago, the violence he'd escaped, the suppressants that kept him hidden. He'd wanted to protect Gavin, to give them a life free from fear. But his silence had cost him everything. Gavin listened, his heart torn between love and betrayal. "Why didn't you trust me?" he asked, tears streaming down his face. "I'm carrying your child, Ethan. Did you think I couldn't handle the truth?" Ethan's eyes widened, shock and joy colliding. "A child," he whispered, reaching for Gavin's hand. "Gavin, I had no idea." The moment was cut short by a crash at the door. The pack was back, and they weren't leaving without blood. Gavin and Ethan fled through a back exit, Clara's quick thinking buying them time. They ran to the lighthouse, the only place Gavin felt safe, its beacon cutting through the fog like a promise of hope. Inside, they faced the truth together. Gavin confessed his fear, his love, his hope for their child. Ethan vowed to fight for them, no matter the cost. As the pack closed in, Gavin made a choice. He would stand with Ethan, not as an Omega to an Alpha, but as an equal, ready to face whatever came next. The lighthouse was their last stand. Marcus and his pack surrounded it, their threats echoing in the stormy night. But Gavin and Ethan were done running. Together, they devised a plan not to fight, but to outsmart. Using Gavin's knowledge of the town and Ethan's strength, they lured the pack into a trap, leading them to a cliff where the fog and darkness worked against them. In the chaos, Marcus fell, his pack scattering without their leader. The danger wasn't gone, but for now, they were safe. As dawn broke, Gavin and Ethan stood atop the lighthouse, the ocean stretching endlessly before them. Ethan took Gavin's hand, his voice steady. "I'll never keep secret from you again," he said. "You, me, our child, we're a family now." Gavin looked into Ethan's eyes, seeing the man he'd fallen for. Flawed but fierce, broken but whole. "We'll face the world together," he said, his hand resting on his stomach, where their future grew. They returned to New York, not to their old life, but to a new one. Gavin's art flourished, his sketches now filled with light and hope. Ethan opened a gym for queer youth, a safe space for those who felt lost. Their child, a boy they named Luca, was born under a sky as bright as their love. The pills, the pack, the pain, they were scars, not chains. Gavin and Ethan had run, fought, and found each other again, proving that love, when honest and true, could conquer even the darkest of wolves. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and it was enough.